All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our special training today for Texas Realtors, specifically talking about zipForm training and talking more specifically about templates and checklists within your zipForm account. My name is Adam Fletcher, and I'm a training specialist at Lone Wolf Technologies, the company that brings your zipForm account to you. And like I mentioned today, we are going to be talking about a more advanced training talking about templates and checklists for your transactions within zipForm. Just a couple of little housekeeping things before we get started for today. We are going to be recording this session. And also we do have a Q&A box for you. If you do have any questions along the way, as I go through each one of these different areas we're going to be discussing today, feel free to type in your questions as we go along. And I'm going to take some pauses throughout each major section just to answer any questions that you may have, so on and so forth. So you'll see the Q&A section there on your menu option within Zoom. So feel free to type those questions in as you have them come along. Well, like I mentioned, we are going to be talking about templates and checklists today. So let's go over some of the main topics that we're going to be covering on today's session. So we'll go over the entire process of, not only how to create a template, obviously, but also what are templates, how templates can be used in your day-to-day business when form transactions to make your lives a lot easier. So we'll go through the entire process of how to create templates from scratch, the various setup settings within your templates, within your account. And then we're going to talk about checklists and tasks. Tasks and checklists are a really great way of making sure that nothing falls through the cracks when you're planning out span of your transaction, whether it be something like setting up meetings or making sure that documents get signed on a particular day, whatever it may be. You can assign tasks and checklists to your transaction and also to templates that we're going to be creating. So we'll talk about all of that here in a little bit. So yeah, we'll talk about checklists right there. We'll talk about task due dates. There's a few different ways that you can assign due dates for your tasks, and we'll talk about that also. And then, of course, we'll talk about actually adding documents in various forms to your templates and how to manage those along the way. And then finally, we'll talk about a few different ways to add a template to your transactions that you currently have, whether it's a brand new transaction or an existing transaction within your account that you may already have there available for you. So a lot to cover today. And like I mentioned, as we go through, if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them into the Q&A box there, and I'll take some time to pause at the end of each section and answer any questions as you may have them. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and jump out of my presentation here and into our account within zipForm. Once you first log into your zipForm account, it probably will bring you, most likely, is the default homepage, I should say, is your transactions tab here when you first log into your zipForm account. So here are all of my demo transactions I have here for my account. But remember, today we're going to be talking about templates and how to build those out. So in order to get to our templates section, we're just going to move over to this templates tab here at the very top of the page. You'll see templates here, and from the drop down, you'll see forms and checklists. Now, just a brief summary for those who may not be too familiar with templates or may want to know a little bit more about what they can do for you. Think of templates as a set of documents and a set of checklists and tasks that you can assign to a specific transaction scenario. So for example, you see a couple of examples I built out here, whether it be for buyer docs or new builds or my listings. Think of it as a way for me to beforehand build out a group of documents and tasks that I know I'm going to be doing for every single time I create a listing. So if I know that every single time I create a listing, I'm going to need a listing agreement, obviously, I'm going to need a seller's disclosure, so on and so forth. Instead of having to reinvent the wheel every single time I create a transaction and manually adding those docs one by one, I can build out a template of documents and tasks for me ahead of time and easily just one click add them to my transaction. And that way all those documents get added, and it saves me a lot of time and hassle from having to manually add them one by one every single time I have a listing. So think of templates as a really great way to be a time saver and also to help you keep organized and make sure that all the documents you need are going to be there available for you within your transaction. So let's go ahead and talk about building out a template from scratch, adding various documents and so forth, and kind of take you through the overall step-by-step process on how to do so. Now you'll see, obviously, like I mentioned, I have a few just examples just to visually show you what they look like when they're built out, of course, but let's go ahead and create one from scratch here. So here at the top left, you'll notice this plus sign where it says new. I'm going to click on that directly. And it's going to give you a few different options of different template types you'd like to create. Just like when you create a transaction within zipForm. And if you're unfamiliar with creating the transaction process, I'm going to show you some additional training materials here at the very end to help you learn a little bit more about that. Since this is more of an advanced session, we're going to move through like we already know how to create a transaction. But if you happen to want some more information about that, I'm going to give you those additional resources here at the end of our training session together. But for now, what we're looking at when it comes to a brand new template, it's going to ask us for what type of template we would like to create. So it breaks it down into 4 different types here. So from left to right, we can create a new listing template if we're going to be listing a property, of course. New purchaser offer when we're representing a buyer, a new lease when we're representing a tenant, and a lease listing when we're representing a landlord. Now, a little bit earlier, I mentioned a listing template. So let's go ahead and show you how to build out one of those. I'm going to use this new listing template option here on the very left-hand side. So I'll click on that here directly. It's going to ask you a few clarifying questions about what type of template you would like to build out. So let's go ahead and I'm going to make this as broad as possible. I'll go ahead and, I'll go ahead and call it listing docs. How about that? But you can really customize this in whatever way you'd like to. You notice on my board in the back that I showed you a little bit earlier, you can get really specific with your templates. For example, if you want to make one just for condos, if you want to make one just for new builds, it doesn't have to be as broad as just listing docs, of course. Really, you can customize this as specifically or in whatever way that you feel is necessary for your day-to-day business. I'm just going to create a very generic one just to kind of show you the overall look of what it looks like. But just keep that in mind that you can really come in and work with these and customize them as you need to build them out. Now, of course, with the name here at the very top, anything, just a little side note too, anything within zipForm that has a little red asterisk next to it just means it's the required field. So obviously we need to name our template. So I have listing docs here is what I'm going to be naming it. Category, I'm going to keep this as residential, but obviously you can specify this. Maybe you have a commercial template if you do a little bit of commercial business on the side that you want to create a template for, or whatever it may be, condominium, so on and so forth. Here on the right-hand side, it's going to say scope, and it'll say personal, global, and office. Now, if you are an agent, you're going to be just creating a personal template because that's for you to personally use within your account. Now, a lot of times your office and your broker can build out templates for you as an agent to use when you create a transaction. So I'm going to show you that here in a little bit once we go to create a transaction and assign a template. But that's what this scope means. Personal means for your own personal use. Global means for your overall brokerage's account, okay? And then office is for if you have a specific office within your brokerage that you work out of, that's what that scope means there. But since I'm a personal agent or I'm an individual agent, I'm only going to be using this personal option here at the top. These other two are for your office if they're going to be building them out for the office. Here down below where it says auto apply, you'll see it has 3 options here. Do not automatically apply this template to new transactions, automatically apply this template to listing residential news transactions, or automatically apply this template to all new transactions. Now you can come in if you're very confident with the template that you're building and maybe you're doing one as generic as this one where it's just basic listing docs. You may want to switch this to all listing residential transactions. And that way this template will automatically be assigned to your transaction that you create anytime you create a new listing transaction. You could assign and click on this one right here. You can also, if you had a really generic one and you had for some reason a template that you wanted to assign to no matter what type of transaction, you could use this one down below too. I prefer most of the time to do this not automatic one, just because you never know when you're going to have one-off issues or scenarios that's unique about a transaction where you don't want to automatically just assign it to every new listing that you're creating. So do not automatically apply to this template is what we're going to use for now. And then we're going to go ahead and click on save here at the bottom. Now you'll notice once I click on save to create the brand new template, we bring up this gray navigation bar that's here at the top of the page. And this is for the template that you're building out. And it starts here in the documents tab. Now this is where we're going to be able to fill out the documents and add our various documents that we want to use for this template we're creating. So I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to add documents to your template. just so you're aware, here at the top left, you'll see this plus sign where it says Add Doc. I'm going to click on that directly. It's going to give us a few different options to add a document to our template. Now you can come in and add a document from something like Dropbox or Google Drive if that's where you have your document stored, of course. But a lot of times, and this is probably the most frequent or popular option, is to pull it directly from your local association's form library. So you can come in and click on this Add Form option here at the top right if you'd like to. And you'll see here on the right-hand side, it'll say Form Libraries. It'll have the name of your association here at the top of the screen. I have a demo account, so that's why it says zipForm Demo Library here. But you'll see your association's name here at the top, and then a full list of all the available documents from that association that you can add to your template. So for my demo library here, let's go ahead and add my listing contract. I know I'm going to be using a listing agreement, of course, for almost all of my listing documents. Of course, we're making it just for a generic listing document template. So I'll add my listing agreement here. You notice when I click on the name of it directly, it adds it to my list here on the left-hand side. Now you can come in here where the documents are. You'll see this little down arrow next to the document that you're looking at. You can also do a few other things with the document if you need to. For example, if you want to just be able to print off a blank copy of the document, you can do that down here. Maybe you want to be able to preview the form on your screen before you actually dedicate it to the template you're building out. You can do that here as well. But if you're confident that this is the document you want, all you need to do is click on the name of the document and it gets added to your template on the left-hand side. Okay, let me add another one here, or here's a seller's disclosure notice. I know we're going to be needing that for our listings as well. So I'll go ahead and add that too. And you see that we're starting to build out a list of documents here for our template that we'll be using. Now, I do want to show you a different way that you can add a document outside of the form association library or outside of Google Drive or something like that. So I'm going to go back into plus sign right here where it says add doc one more time. And I'm going to use this browse for document feature. Now, the Browse for Document feature allows you to upload documents directly from your computer if you happen to have a copy of a document available on whatever device you're using at the time. You can come and upload it directly using Browse for Document. So if I click on Browse for Document here, let me see if I can find a good one. Yeah, this might work here. I have a lead-based paint disclosure that I had on my desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and upload it to my template I'm creating. Now, you'll notice that the file name looks a little messy, right? It's got a lot of underscores and so forth. So if you ever upload a file like this from your computer and you want to clean it up a little bit when it comes to the name of it, you can always change the display name here. I'm just going to go ahead and do that real quickly. So we'll go ahead and rename it there. You can also write a little description for yourself if you need a reminder of what this document is used for. You can always do that here too, but I'll go ahead and click on OK there. And I'm going to go ahead and add it to my document list. So you see we're kind of building those out as we need to. All right, so once you start building out your template of documents, you may want to come in and make them a little bit more organized with how they're going to be looking on your screen. So instead of having a full list of documents just kind of on one page like this, especially when we get to maybe a dozen or more in here, you may want to come in and organize them just like you would on a desktop computer when you create folders on your computer to organize all those different tabs and so forth. You can do the same thing with your templates here by clicking on Add Folder. So for example, if I want to come in here and create a folder for working documents, I can do that here as well. And then I can also come in and create a folder for, once my documents have been filled out and signed, I can make one for completed documents, okay? So you see that here, we have our working documents, and then once they're filled out and signed, we can put them into the completed folder right there. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention that will be really helpful for you, especially for documents that, for example, completed documents that aren't completed yet, right? But we want to make sure that they get added to our template. You can create what's called a placeholder. Now, think of a placeholder, like I mentioned, as a way to add a document that doesn't quite exist yet. Whether it's some sort of inspection report you want to upload that we know we're going to be getting an inspection on our transaction, but we obviously don't have that right now to upload as a part of our document list, but we do want to put a place for it as a reminder for ourselves to add it later. Or maybe we want to have a placeholder for our completed documents once they are available. we can create a placeholder for those, and that way we can fill in the placeholder at a later date if we need to. So let me show you what placeholder or how to add a placeholder if you ever need to do that. You'll just click on create a placeholder here at the very top. Let's say we're going to create a placeholder for our lead bait. We'll do one for each one of these. How about that? Let me type this in really quickly. I'll try to do my best typing typing live here for a second. You can also, like I mentioned, add a description for the placeholder you're creating. You can even make it required for yourself or not, and even set a due date for when it's going to be due to be filled in, right? We need to have this lead-based paint disclosure signed by this specific date, or relative, which I'll talk about the relative due date here in a second. But let's go ahead and just fill in our placeholders for now. Let me add a couple more here for our other documents as we need to. Here, I'll just make these short and sweet. There we go, make that required. And then one more here for our seller's disclosure. There we go. We'll make that required as well. Okay, so what we can do is move these, see how we kind of have all these different documents. It looks a little messy, right? We can come in and organize these a little bit further if we need to. I can always left click on a specific document, and I can drag it and drop it into whatever organization folder I want to. So here's our working documents. I'm just going to put all of my working documents into the working documents folder. And then all of my placeholders, because remember, once they're completed, we're going to put them in the placeholder. We're going to add them into here. And you notice how I set it to required status. That just means that it's going to be required for me to fill in this placeholder with the completed document before I can submit it to the office for approval. So it's really good to have, if you have documents for your listing docs, as this example is, where you know you're going to have required documents that your office wants to make sure is a part of the packet you submit, that you set it to required, and that way the system makes you add the document before you can actually submit it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep that nice and organized there. So now I have my working documents, and then once they're completed, I have my placeholders that I can fill them in. And once I'm ready to fill in a placeholder, once you get to that point in the transaction, you can always scroll over your placeholder, this down arrow right here. And once you get to it, there'll be a fill placeholder option down below. We'll see that here in a second when we create our transaction. Okay, so we have our list of documents, working documents, and completed documents. Now let's talk about templates from another aspect. And that includes what's called checklist and tasks. You know, just because we have our documents, we can also build out other things for our template, which are different tasks that we're going to need to do throughout the life of our transaction that we want to make sure that get done in a timely manner, making sure that nothing falls through the cracks, so on and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and click over here from documents to this checklist tab. And let's go ahead and build out a checklist for our various tasks we're going to be doing with our listing transactions that we're creating for this template. Here at the top, see where it says new checklist. Let me click on that directly here. I'm just going to make a, let's just call it a generic one. We'll just call it the to-do list for now. Really, you can name this and make this as specific as you want to, but I'll make it fairly generic there. Now I have my overall to-do list that I want to make sure gets done. And then I can create subcategories underneath that to-do list of different things that I want to make sure we get done. So for example, if I click on where it says category right here, there's this little pencil icon. I can come in here and make a subcategory. Maybe I want to make one just for the meetings that I need to make sure get done for our transaction. It also allows you to color coordinate that specific subsection. I'll keep it with green, but you can choose one of these other colors if you'd like to. So you see we have our to-do list, and then underneath that is our meetings. And then I can come in and create specific meetings as a reminder for myself or the various parties that are going to be involved using this create a new task option right here. So if I click on that directly, let's say a meeting with the escrow officer. That's a really great one. So I can set the task name here, meeting with the escrow officer. And you can also assign due dates for your specific tasks as you're building them out, whether you want to keep it at none. If you have a specific date that you want to assign it for, you can do that. Now, I will mention that this fixed date option, when you're creating templates, probably we don't want to do a specific date, right? Because you're going to be using this template frequently, and the fixed date obviously wouldn't make sense for your future transactions. But what you can do is what's called the relative option that I kind of hinted at a little bit earlier. Now, the relative option allows you to assign a specific dates based on a specific time period within your transaction's lifespan. So for example, if I wanted to set up a meeting with the escrow officer to happen 10 days after whatever it may be, a listing date. We'll just put it at that for now. Whatever it may be, you can set that up. You can see there's a few different options here for those action points, whether it's the listing date, the closing date, date of contract, offer date, so on and so forth. And that way, once I do have my listing date added to my transaction, it'll automatically calculate this for me when this due date is for this specific task, okay? So that's why I really like this relative feature, especially when we're talking about templates and we're unsure, obviously, when the specific date of the meeting will be, but we know we want to get it done within a certain amount of days of whatever action item is over here on the right-hand side. Now, just like we did with our documents, you can make these required for yourself or not. If you want it to be required that we make sure we get this done before we can actually get our transaction approved, you can switch this to yes or no, of course. You can also come down here where it says responsible party and assign a task to a party as you need to. If you want to make sure the buyers are involved or the sellers, whatever it may be, you can come in and do that as you need to. You'll just do that assigning option here. And then when you go in and add your parties to your transaction, it'll assign it to them and they can be notified via email of the task that is needed for them. You see right here where it says notify responsible party when due. I can switch that to yes. And once I add my party here, it'll assign it to that party and they'll be emailed a notification of it once the transaction's created. You can also write a brief description of what the meeting is going to be about or whatever the task may be down here at the bottom right. And there are going to be certain situations where you'll need to attach documents, maybe a meeting itinerary or whatever it may be. You can also attach documents to your task too. That'll be a part of that as well. So once you fill that out, you'll just click on save here. And then you'll see we have our task right down below, meeting with an escrow officer. Now let's go ahead and do another example of a different type of category when it comes to something that you can build out within your template. Let's say that we want to do, let's go with appraisals and inspections. I know contractually, maybe once I do go under contract, I need to get my inspections done. I don't know, let's say within 10 days of the contract date. Let me go ahead and assign this really quickly before I jump ahead. So we have our subcategory here, appraisals and inspections. And then just like with our meetings, we can create tasks within that subcategory. So I'm going to go ahead and do one really quickly. Let's do a roof inspection here. And let's say that contractually, I'm not sure in Texas if this is the accurate date for this, but we'll just play pretend for a little bit. Let's say that contractually, we need to get our inspections done within 10 days of the date of contract. I can use this relative feature again, put in 10 days after, and then instead of listing date, I can put in the date of contract here, okay? And that way, once we do have our date of contract added to our transaction, it'll automatically, just like with the meetings, calculate when this inspection needs to be done. And just like we said, you can assign parties and so forth, make this required or not. Attach documents, maybe you want to attach your inspection documents once they're available. You can always do that here, and then click save, okay? And just like what I mentioned with the documents section, you can create the task now for your template. And then obviously when you assign it, you can always come back into here later, click a plus sign and add those documents once they do become available. Okay, so those are the various tasks that you can create for your template, as well as the checklist also. Now what I want to do is show you what it looks like to create a transaction from scratch, assign a template, and kind of show you what it looks like on the front end once you've attached the template to your transaction. So let me go ahead and go back here really quickly, make sure that I have I think it saved correctly. Yes, it did. Oh, perfect. Let's go ahead and create a brand new transaction from scratch, and I'm going to show you how to assign that template that we just created. So when we are ready to go ahead and build out a new transaction, you may already be familiar with this. You'll just click on transactions here at the top of the screen. Here at the top left, you'll click on this new button here. Again, it's going to ask you just like we looked at with the templates, very similar, right? We have to pick our category of transaction we're creating, whether it's listing, purchase, or offer, lease, or lease listing. So for this one, obviously, it's going to be a listing. So we'll click on that here. You can tell that I have a great imagination. So I'm going to call it 1234 listing lane. Anyway, so I just wanted to show you how to add the template really quickly, though, is the main goal here. But here we have the name of our transaction we're creating, property address, the category, it's going to be residential. And then we can come in and select the agent or the template that we want to use where it says select template right here. So you'll see where it says My Templates. I can come in here and pull from all of those templates that I have available. And you'll also see that they'll have the category of personal, office, or global. Remember when we talked about template categories? Personal are the ones that you've built out personally within your account. The office ones are for your specific office you work out of, and global are for your entire brokerage. So if you're in a part of a larger brokerage, the office admins may build out templates use, and if they do, they're going to be under this global category. Okay, so those are the three differentials there. So for our personal one we built out, remember we had this one called listing docs, so I'll go ahead and assign that here, and then we'll go ahead and add it to our transaction. Once we click on save, let's go ahead and go in here really quickly. You'll see that it added the different transaction documents for us, as well as our checklist. So here's our checklist of the different categories that we created when it came to appraisals and inspections, as well as meetings that we can then work out of from there. Now, once you have your checklist and task and all your documents added, then you can go in and add those from there. You can always come in and manually add in more documents if you need to. You know, every time you assign a template to a transaction, you all know this as agents, every transaction is unique, right? Every property is unique. Even though we add a template of documents, there always are going to be one-off situations where we need to add in one-off documents and so forth. And you can still come in and add those documents manually if you need to, or customize your checklist here and add additional checklist items as you need to as well. It's just a really good time saver to assign a template like this if you know that the bare essential doc automatically added for you, and you can easily come in and customize and add on top of those if you need to as well. So just a really great time saver for templates and checklists. Now, speaking of checklists, I do want to mention a couple other things when it comes to tasks and so forth, because obviously just because we're talking about this specific transactions, checklists, and tasks, you may want to also be able to look at all of your transactions tasks to make sure that when you come in at the beginning of the day, or maybe you come in at the beginning of the week, that you see a list of all of your tasks for the week or the day or whatever it may be. So that way you keep on top of all of your transactions as you're managing them. More than likely, you'll probably have more than one transaction you're working on at one given time. So we want to make sure that we see all of our tasks in one spot. That way we can kind of multitask, no pun intended there. So let's go ahead. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways you can see all of your tasks within your zipForm account outside of your specific transaction you're working in. Here at the top left, you'll see this dashboard option here. I'm going to go to that really quickly. I do want to show you not only our tasks that we're looking at, but also what the dashboard does here as well, if you're unfamiliar with this section. Think of the dashboard as kind of your eagle-eyed view of all the activity that's going on within your zipForm account. So, you know, here on the left-hand side, for example, you can see all of your e-signings in progress. I'm not an active agent within this account here, so I don't have a lot of these numbers, but you definitely will. You'll be able to see all of your listings, transactions closing for the month. You can see your commissions earned here at the bottom left. You can see your e-sign packets out for signature and what status they're in. You can also see what documents you've submitted to your office down below that as well. And then here at the bottom, this is for what we were talking about today with checklists and tasks and the templates that you assigned. You can see your tasks due for the week, not only for the transaction we just created, but all of your transactions within the system altogether. You can see your weekly tasks kind of written out for you here for the week. So this is a really great habit to get into, I think, is when you come into the office, whether it, on Monday or whatever it may be, and you want to see, what's coming up for the week, you can always come here to your dashboard, see a full list of your tasks due, come in and manage them, make sure the meetings are set up, the documents are sent out for signature, whatever it may be, and however you build it out. So this is just a really great way of seeing all of those tasks here under this section on the dashboard. Okay, so one other thing I wanted to mention has to do with your task tab here at the very top of the screen. So let's go ahead and jump over here, because like I mentioned, just like we saw on the dashboard, you can also see a list of your tasks as they're kind of written out for you here under this task section. So this won't be just for the transaction we worked in. This will be for all of your transactions combined. You can see them here under a couple of different views. This is currently called the calendar view. You can see it's broken down from Sunday to Saturday, specifically for the week, although you could switch this to month or day if you need to. Here's the monthly view of those different tasks, as well as you can get down to the day if you'd like to as well here on the top right. You can also switch where it says calendar right here. If you wanted to switch this to what's called the checklist view, you'll see kind of a familiar structure that we saw within the transaction itself, but this is a full list of all of the different tasks you have for all of your various transactions throughout the entire system. So here on the left-hand side, you'll see the status of all these, of course. You'll see the task name, the details of all the tasks here under this column. You'll see the transaction name, whether it's for your contract or your buyer docs or your buyer transactions or your listing transactions, whatever it may be. You'll see the list of them there. You'll see a due date, of course, any documents you've added, and if you've assigned any other parties to the task, they'll be here on the right-hand side too. So just a really great way of seeing all of them here all together. Now, one other thing you can do if you click on checklist one more time is what's called the board view. Now, the board view allows you to basically see the progress of all of your tasks based on their status. So kind of similar to something like a Trello board, if you're familiar with that. It allows you to take each one of these task cards and kind of drag them through the lifespan of your transaction or of your task, whether they're in progress all the way down to completed. You can move these as they kind of move through the system here. You'll see a full list of them down below. Okay, so that is the kind of the basics for building out a template, building out your checklist and your task and so forth. If you do have any questions along the way, feel free to ask them into the question box, and I'll be sure to answer those as we go through our presentation today. I do want to show you a couple of additional resources, not only for building out templates and checklists and so forth, but also for just zipForm in general. So if you want a refresher on how to create transactions from scratch, or maybe you want to learn more about checklists and templates, we do have some additional training materials that'll be able to help you out along the way that I think is really valuable to take a look at. Here towards the top right, you'll see my profile picture right here, but right next to it, there's this little question mark with a circle around it. Click on that directly. From the drop down, there's this Learning Center option. If we click on that here, this is our main area where you can learn a lot about the system within your zipForm account. And it starts with the tutorials area right here. If you want a little short, 5-minute tutorial video about something very specific within your zipForm account, you can come here to tutorials and learn more about that. For example, we talked about checklists today and documents. If you want to learn more about how to build those out within your transaction, you can always come in and take a look at those here too. Like we talked about document management, there's a few for that specifically. Maybe you want to learn more about form editing and the e-signature platform. You can do that down below here as well. We also do have a live training calendar for other topics within our zipForm account that we teach on for public training. So you can take a look at our live training calendar here at the top left as well. Help guides, let me show you that really quickly. Help guides is a really great way of being able to download a step-by-step guide with screenshots of different things you can want to learn about within your zipForm account. So for example, if you do want a refresher on how to create a new transaction from scratch, and maybe you want the step-by-step guide with screenshots and so forth, that way you can kind of reference it and go at your own pace as you're working in your account. You can always download this free guide here for creating a new transaction right here. And there's also other ones here. Here's one for template, like we talked about today. These are step-by-steps as well. So you can also do that here too. And there's a few other ones here down the line as you need to also. Okay, so a couple dozen different guides here that it's going to be really valuable for you to take a look at. So feel free to use those as you need to. Another couple things I wanted to mention here on this screen, we do have a video library, this videos section right here. These are little 5, 10, 15-minute videos about specific topics as well that you may want to learn about within your zipForm account. So feel free to take a look at those also. We do have a really great question going over how do we get individual login to zipForm separate from the Texas Realtors page. So you can log in directly to your Texas Realtors page, of course. If you do want to log in directly, you can also do so directly here. This is the website for it. It's zipformplus.com is the direct website to log into your account. So you can do it one of two ways, either on the Realtor website for Texas Realtors or zipformplus.com to log in. Really great question. Okay, so we have a really great question. Would you please share the PDF guide link to me? Well, the guides, there's not a direct link for these. I guess I could do this here. This will show you direct link here. Let me type in that answer here for you. I'm going to send that out to everybody so that they can see it. I just sent that over to you guys, the link for that. But whenever you want to access these help guides, let me just show you one more time how to get to this page here. Here towards the top right, there's my profile. Your profile picture will be right here. There's this little question mark with a circle around it. And then if you click on Learning Center from the drop down, you'll see this Help Guides tab here at the top left. And that'll take you to that page that we were just looking at there. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to jump back into my presentation as we do wrap up for today. If you do have any follow-up questions, feel free to ask them into the Q&A box there, and we'll be sure to answer those as we go along. But I do want to wrap up today with a couple of additional bits of information for you all. So let me bring this back up here for you guys. Just give me 1 second. Let me make sure that I have my presentation here. There we go. Perfect. Lost my spot, but that's okay. Let's go over just a brief summary of what we talked about today. Obviously, we talked about how to create a template, right? So where to go when you first log in. That template tab will be at the very top of your screen. That way you can go and log in and create your templates as you need to. We talked about the various setup settings, right, for our template, whether it's going to be a listing or on the buyer side of things. The different due dates. Remember how you can set specific due dates or relative to a specific action within a transaction. You can also do checklists for your templates, right? We talked about various checklists and those tasks within the checklists, the various due dates, as well as how to add your various forms and adding those templates to a new transaction. Oh, let me show you really quickly. I don't know if I'll show you this really quickly when it comes to existing transactions. That's a really good point that I forgot to mention. One quick side note I wanted to mention about templates. We showed you how to add it to a brand new transaction, but you may already have some transactions you're currently working on that you may want to add a template to. So let me show you how to do that really quickly. Let me go into my transactions here at the top. Here's my list of my demo transactions, if you will. I'm going to go ahead and let's just use this Rolling Ridge one right here, even though I think this already has documents in it. If you do want to assign a template of documents to your transaction you've already created, you can always come into the transaction you've already created. Just click on the Documents tab here, and you'll see this Apply Template button right here. And once you click on Apply Template, it'll have your full list of templates that you can add those documents for. So even if you forgot to add your template at the beginning when you're first creating a transaction, that's no problem. Maybe you already have a transaction created right now. You can still come in and add those templates at any time using this Apply Template button right here. A really great question also. Let me find you a link to, there's a link for recorded sessions. I'm going to show you a link here for our video library here in a second that I'm going to show you here in a little bit. So hold on 1 second. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump back in here. I'm going to find this for you guys real quickly and share the link here. I'm at elwolf.com/support. This is our support area for a lot of different articles and so forth for our various products, including our zipForm account. So I'm going to go into zipForm real quickly, go into our video library, and show you the video library specifically for zipForm. This will have a lot of our webinar recordings as well as some other recorded videos we've created that'll go over everything that you need to know within your zipForm account. So let me go into the chat real quick. And I'm going to share this with you guys in the chat. Let me see if it'll allow me to do this here. I'm going to type this in here. I think that should show that to you guys. Just let me know if you didn't see that in the Q&A section there. Okay, so it's I just shared that link with you guys there in the chat there before. Now let me go ahead and jump back into my presentation though, because I do want to show you a couple other bits of information as we do wrap up for today. Let me go right here. Sorry about that. I lost my place again. That's no problem. Like I mentioned, if you do have any follow-up questions, keep them coming here at the Q&A section there. I'll be sure to answer them as we do wrap up. I want you to write these couple of different options down here for you when it comes to our customer care team's contact information. If you ever have any issues with your account, whether it's something like, a document's not uploading correctly, or, something as small as, or something as simple as, hey, I'm not able to log into my account, whatever it may be, feel free to jot down our customer care team's contact information there on the left-hand side of the screen. There's their phone number, as well as their website where you can submit a help request. They're available for everybody 24/7. So anytime of the day that you need them, they're there to help you out along the way. So feel free to use that as you need to. And then also, if you have any follow-up questions for me about our training today, or any of our future trainings, or any guides or videos that you want to see, whatever it may be, feel free to reach out to us. That's our contact information there on the right-hand side. It's trainingteam@lwolf.com. All right, well, I really appreciate everybody's time today. I know we went through a lot of information, but if you do think of any other follow-up questions or anything you want me to clarify, feel free to email me, trainingteam@lwolf.com. I appreciate your time this morning. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will hope to see you all on our next training. Bye for now, everybody.